And it's this drop-off here, where you really stop getting progress. This is the low-hanging fruit. This is the really easy stuff to get to this point without significant additional expense. You start off with a very high NPV, you brought it down to about here, and of course going to here. I'll talk about other ways to get to higher savings of energy, higher savings of carbon, and the financial return in my comments. Next, please. Follow this. Here's the next thing I'd like to point out. This is the difference between what happens in the building and what happens within tenant spaces. If you look at the available savings, you notice an awful lot of this takes place within tenant spaces. And we're going to talk about that as well. We're going to stop talking about just focusing on what happens in buildings and start talking about what happens in both parts of buildings, building systems and building occupants. And a lot of building occupants, the whole idea is once you do things quantitatively, the interesting point to Robert Turner's slide, 95 cents every euro goes towards your business, and then 5 cents goes towards doing good deeds. Well, let's do good deeds in the business and make money about it. Next slide, please. Had a good enough look at this? Next slide, please. This is really what matters to me. Take a look at this. This is actual data from Skanska. Skanska, the international engineering construction firm, built out a full floor at the Empire State Building. And it's probably one of the most documented situations in the United States of a tenant fit-up and the results. Okay? They documented their actual costs versus a typical cost. They looked at the premium for energy efficiency, and that's even real high because they went for a LEED Platinum rating in the United States as well. I'm not so particularly high on LEED myself, particularly in the existing building environment. This is their energy savings. They got a grant to offset, net positive over the life of their lease, over 15 years, $405,000. They made a $200,000 investment. They got a $400,000 gain, and that's discounting, I believe, at 8.5%. The fact is they're also calculating sick days, they're calculating worker productivity, they're calculating hours worked, and worker quality. And they also calculated against the energy intensity of their former office. And the bottom line is, this is the argument when people say, oh, you can't work with tenants because tenants have a split incentive. And we as landlords want to do this good work, but tenants don't want to. And the bottom line is, if you tell a tenant that she or he is going to save 10% off their total cost of install over the life of their lease on an NPV basis by making the right simple steps, in the right order, now you're making it into an argument where they bring their CSR into the way they do business instead of doing just that 5 cents out of each euro for benefits to the environment, for goodwill. Next slide, please. This is an interesting slide to me. We looked at 67 different energy efficiency measures of the Empire State Building. We now have it up to about 72. They'll differ by building based on construction type, geographic location, the environment in which you're working. But the bottom line is, we chose 8. And of these 8, only one is more than 6%. The vast bulk, and there's no silver bullet here. You couldn't say, well, if we only did this one. So it's the right steps in the right order. It's an integrated approach. It's not, let's just go do a relamping program. It's not, oh, you know what, we'll put variable frequency drives, variable speed drives on all the fans and pumps. It's incorporating the basket of ideas together. DDC, the digital controls over the energy system. Controlling tenant use, simple things, and lighting, and switching off equipment which is idle. Variable air volume air handling units. Retrofitting the chiller plant. We retrofitted 6,514 duo-pane windows on site in the building. This job is done. We built a 5,000 square foot facility in the building, put everything in, loaded everything in through elevators. We took every single window out, broke it apart, cleaned it, inserted a mylar sheet, resealed it with encrypted argon gas, reinstalled it in the building. We took them from an R2 to an R8 rating. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the R ratings, but air is 0 and a solid masonry wall with insulation is R15. Triple glazed, modern glass in a glass curtain wall building struggles to achieve R7, R8. We did this for about $700 a window versus $3,200 a window building new. We reused over 96% of the glass and window frames in our work. We got new windows which are warranted for more than 20 years. A radiative barrier, tenant controls and tenant spaces. Let's go to the next slide, please. Here's a little thing on the windows. Next slide, please. You can take a look at this. This happens in every major office building in New York City. It probably exists in every building as well in London. If you have a radiator or a radiator heating cooling unit, there's probably nothing between that unit and the exterior wall. So you're heating and cooling the outside of the building as well as the inside. Very simple, put in a radiative barrier. Next slide, please. Redo the chiller plant. Next slide, please. That's a retrofit, not a redo. Adding variable air volume units. What do we do when we do this? We are curing the #1 complaint in office buildings: too hot, too cold. Next slide, please. DDC controls. We have a real-time commissioning process at the Empire State Building. We don't set it up and forget it. We actually install it and put it together, and we monitor it 24/7. If a single louver in an air duct, if a single radiator valve, if a single fan motor goes out of whack, we immediately know about it. We have the largest wireless network in the world installed in this building. None of this stuff is high-tech, by the way. And it goes to a monitoring system in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and they say, well, louver X is out. It gets to the PDF of the worker in the office building who goes to fix that, pushes a button, says it's fixed. They confirm it in Milwaukee. This is all off-the-shelf stuff. Next slide, please. Demand control, ventilation, bring in fresh air when we don't need to cool. In San Francisco, California, probably the same as London, England, there's hardly a reason half of the year to use air conditioning. But because the buildings are sealed, you've got the air conditioning running all the time. You bring in fresh air, it's healthier, you filter it, and you also don't then have your cooling plant on. Next, please. We actually have for every tenant a dashboard which gives that tenant real-time information on their consumption of energy. And we can actually give them hints about how they are performing compared to other tenants. This is available from Johnson Controls to be installed in any building, for any tenant, floor by floor, any space that's metered or sub-metered. It's off the shelf. Next slide, please. And then, of course, the steps that you can take in your properties. And I'll get to a little bit more of this in my comments. Next slide, please. I'll leave it at this. If you want to know more, go to esbsustainability.com if you would. So let's talk about, that's what we did. Let's talk about what we learned. What have I learned? Again, the existing built environment is critical. Keep that in mind. If you don't attack the existing built environment, we will not turn back the needle on energy consumption. Make it about money. I'm interested in talking about things quantitatively. I do not try to talk to people about carbon. I'm from the United States. You immediately enter into a distracting conversation or argument, or turn off half the people in the room. Make it about money. I talk to people about money spent, the return on investment, jobs created, savings achieved, and pounds and pence. It's more than just payback, more than just return on investment. It's also cost avoidance, but I'll talk about that a little later. Go after the biggest utility bills first. We consume 40,000 average